Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to the newspaper analysis. So guys, let's start with the video. First of all guys, please confirm me, is voice audible and is the video visible or not? And I would apologize for a little bit delay that happened. Actually, there was a technical glitch and there was some problem that came. So therefore, there is a delay. So let's start guys with the today's newspaper discussion. So in the today's session, we are going to take the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper. We will take all the articles and we will be analyzing it. And if you are new here, you can download the explainer PDF. In the explainer PDF, the notes of all the articles that we are going to discuss has been given. Okay, in the last mains practice question has also been given. You can download it from the Telegram channel. The link for the Telegram channel has been given in the description box in YouTube. Moreover, you can visit the Telegram and can search there by typing Thinking Palette by Sahil. Now, starting up. So guys, first of all, let's take the overview of the entire newspaper so that we can understand that which article are important in the today's newspaper. New scanners to speed up the security check at airport. So in the past few days, it has been seen that there are a lot of congestion that has happened. So for that particular thing, new norms will be issued. However, for exam, nothing is contained in this article. Delhi LG orders recovery of 97 crore, not important article. Moving on. So guys, in the city section also the regional politics etc. has been given. Nothing very much important. Directly will reach to the editorial. On the editorial, upholding the autonomy of election commission, we'll see this article as what it is talking about. The new normal in Indo-Pacific contention, this article also will see. Then fluid boundaries. Okay, so basically guys, this article is talking about the recent dispute that has happened between the Karnataka and Maharashtra on some of the villages. Now understand this particular thing that the basically interstate disputes which are there, fine, they are very rampant. Okay, and however the article is not containing much of a substance with respect to the examination. Okay, moving on, prosecuting the Donald Trump. So against the Donald Trump, the prosecution has been taken up into the USA. That article is being discussed. Then the profound ramification of one amendment, we'll see this particular article. Then a challenge for the Congress in Himachal, not important article with respect to the exam. Vegetable prices in India are on a roller coaster ride. So basically, what are the prices of the different vegetables? Okay, such kind of things have been provided. You are not required to follow such microscopic data for your examination. A new global biodiversity framework, we'll see this article. Then how great gamble on the price cap on Russia oil might just fumble, we'll see this particular article also. Then guys, understand this particular thing that as the parliamentary session is going on, there is a lot of day-to-day developments that are coming. Fine, you are not required to actually track too much of that. Only important things, important bills etc. if they are being passed, that only you have to see. Now here, if not reformed, UN will be overtaken by the other organization. So it has been provided that the G20 is becoming more influential and the G20 will become more powerful than the UN. So in the UN, United Nations Security Council, whatever the issues are there, we need to solve them and the reforms are needed to be brought. No survey done to identify number of EWS recipients. We'll see this particular article. Unknown threat element had tempered the IT servers of the AIMS. Okay. Then moving on. After that, there states financial constraints given short shrift opposition. So basically, we find this particular thing that as the parliament is going on, so here basically the union government and the opposition, they are exchanging the words onto the expenditure etc. that is being done. Now understand this particular thing. In the article, exam related substance has not been given, so no need to go too much into the detail. Rule 267, we'll see briefly that what this particular Rule 267 of the Rajya Sabha is, which has come into the news. Panel flags victimization of SC/ST employees of the PSU. So it is being said that they are just being harassed, as it is being said that the caste certificates are needed to be verified. It is just a kind of a victimization that is being done. Okay, then after that, moving on, MPs across the aisle break bread at a feast of millet. So in the parliament, the MPs, they have done the lunch where the millets were served. Fine. So basically guys, understand this particular thing that the international year of millets is being observed. Okay, so that is something. Then 3 more sites added to the tentative list of UNESCO. We'll see this article. Navy takes delivery of submarine Vagir. We'll see this article also. Then US lawmakers call for criminal charges against Donald Trump because of the Capitol Hall incident that happened in the USA. Not needed to go too much into this article. Taliban regime orders nationwide ban on the varsity education of Afghan girls. So we see this that Taliban is basically digressing, and we have seen that into the past, though they have promised that they'll restore minority rights, women rights, but that is not happening, and now even the in university education has been banned. Then moving on, outlook darkening globally, local factors spur India's growth. So basically it's being said that though inflation has come under control, okay, and basically the economy is trying to come out of the lows of the COVID-19 pandemic, but still the global outlook are not very much positive. Now understand this particular thing, guys, that as we talk about the present economic situation, okay, or the present growth rate, inflation rate, fine, they depend on a lot many number of factors, okay. So moving on, therefore I am saying that you should not too much focus on the numbers in the present times of fine, because they tend to change. Government probes possible misappropriation of swaps by the EV makers, okay. Then other articles are mainly giving the corporate trends, okay. So much important relevant substance is not there. Coming to the sports page then, okay. So this is, guys, all the overview of newspaper today, and now let's discuss all the relevant articles one by one in detail. Okay. So in every class we start with a GS quotation. To today we'll take the quotation from Mahatma Gandhi. So Gandhi ji says, I object to violence because when it appears to do good, the good is only temporary and the evil it does is permanent. So I object to violence. Many number of times the violence is justified, okay, because of some many other kind of a causes. But according to Gandhiji, the violence can never be justified, because violence, though it is being justified for some temporary good, but in the long term, it will always be going to be harmful. Fine. Even Gandhiji had said this particular thing, that what a difference it makes to the poor and hungry and the dead, whether the war was fought in the holy name of democracy or in the name of totalitarianism. Violence is always bad. Violence will always bring some bad. Okay. So this is something. Now taking up the first article. So the first article is taken from the text and the context section, and the article reads, a new global biodiversity framework. So this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 3, ecological conservation, Now, before going in this particular article, let me give you some of a background and some of the context as why this particular article has come and what is the major thing that is being discussed here. Just a minute. Yes. Okay. So basically, guys, what has happened? The Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD's Conference of Parties, 15th Conference of Party, has recently been held in Montreal in Canada. Now, Convention on Biological Diversity was adopted in 1992 Rio Earth Summit, and this particular convention aims to conserve the biological diversity. It has basically three main goals. Let's see what are the three main goals of the Convention of Biological Diversity. Number one is the conservation of biological diversity. Second is sustainable use of the biodiversity and its components, flora, fauna. We know that many of the plants have medicinal purposes and many such kind of purposes, so their usage needs to be the sustainable one. And the third is fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of genetic resources. These are three objectives of Convention of Biological Diversity. Now from time to time, the parties or the countries, they meet to discuss the convention's implementation, and now the Conference of Party 15 has been held in Montreal, Canada. Here the countries have come together to adopt the new global they have came to adopt a new global biodiversity framework, and successfully it has been adopted, and therefore the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework got adopted. So in the today's article, we are broadly going to discuss about this Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that's adopted in the COP 15. Now let's start with this particular discussion. Basically, when we talk about the Global Biodiversity Framework, it is very closely aligned with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. When we talk about sustainable developmental goals, there are 17 sustainable developmental goals. Within that, 169 targets are there. SDG goals are to be achieved by 2030. And within the SDG goals, environment and environmental conservation is an important theme. For example, goal number 13, Goal number 13 specifically talks about climate action. Goal number 14 talks about life below water, and goal 15 talks about life on land. So all these three goals of UN SDG will be fulfilled by this global biodiversity framework that has been adopted in 2022. It basically sets four goals for 2050. We'll discuss these goals also, that what these goals are talking about. It sets four goals for 2050, 23 targets for 2030. Fine. And major theme or major focus is to save the existing biodiversity, to ensure that 30% of degraded terrestrial, inland water, coastal and marine ecosystem come under effective restoration. For example, guys, we find this particular thing, desertification is happening. Okay, coastal landscapes are getting disturbed. Mangroves are basically, they are getting uprooted, they are getting disturbed. All these things are happening. So basically 30% of this degraded terrestrial, inland water, coastal and marine ecosystems, they have to be restored back. This is the focus. Now, further, the CBD, now this is not the first time that such kind of initiative, that is GBF, has been taken. Earlier in the past also, such initiatives have been taken. For example, Aichi biodiversity targets for 2020 were taken, and in the past, Nagoya Protocol was also taken in 2014, which majorly focuses on biodiversity access and benefits, and now this GBF. Now, basically, CBD has observed this particular thing, that uh, we have only classified 1.75 million species. Only 1.75 million species have been identified and have been classified. But there are 13 million species. Majority of them are insects. They have neither been identified nor they have been classified. Actually, the biodiversity, the ecosystems are far more complex. Fine, we don't even know many of the species and the role that they are playing, and we are disturbing that, altering them. It has been provided that the ecosystem provides us many of the ecological services. For example, ecosystem provides us food, fuel, fiber, shelter, building material, air and water purification. It plays the role of stabilization of climate, pollination of plant. Okay, and therefore basically it also has effects onto the flood, drought, extreme temperature. So in a very significant manner, ecosystem is important, is responsible, and in ecosystem these species are very important. But when we are disturbing ecosystem, and when the species are getting extincted, when they are getting declined, at the end of the day, all these services that are being given, they will get disturbed. Further, CBD also, in the COP15 session that has happened, it has basically also taken the note of this particular aspect, that agriculture has also significantly impacted the ecosystem. So basically, within agriculture, we need to have sustainable practices in agriculture, so that the agriculture doesn't negatively impact ecosystem. Aquaculture, fine, where the fishes etc. are being grown. So sustainable aquaculture, sustainable fisheries and forestries needed to be adopted. In this particular direction, it has been said that nowadays, if we see, genetically modified crops have become very popular. Recently, DMH11, that is the mustard, fine, mustard, has been given approval in India also. And when these genetically modified crops are being brought, it has been said that it will become the dominant and native varieties will be lost. So as these GM crops are coming in the agriculture, they will impact the biodiversity. So therefore, we need to be very careful. So therefore, it is the GM crops, they are not very much favored by agroecologists. Okay. Now, when we talk about the GBF, that is the Global Biodiversity Fund, I have told you that it has taken that goals for 2050. So basically, what are the key aspects of these goals? Number one, they'll be focusing on maintaining ecosystem integrity and health to halt the extinction. Ecosystem integrity, all the species that are there in an ecosystem and the role that they play, we need to respect them, and we need to make sure that their extinction should not happen. The next thing is that it will be measuring and valuing ecosystem and services provided by biodiversity. So the jungle, okay, a forest is providing it many ecosystem services. What is the value of that ecosystem services? We need to calculate it. We never calculate it. We always take it as just granted. Then next is sharing monetary and non-monetary gains from genetic resources. Okay, so sharing these resource gains with the traditional communities or the communities who are living there and with others as well. Next is digital sequencing of genetic resources with indigenous people and local communities. Okay, so digitally we need to sequence them, digitally we need to compile them, and we need to classify the genetic resources that are being found in a particular region. And indigenous communities, tribal people, native people, their assistance is also should be taken for that thing. Then we need to raise resources to close a biodiversity finance gap. Around $700 billion will be raised to protect the biodiversity. Now, in order to achieve all these particular targets, the member countries who had came at COP15, they have been asked that they had to submit a revised and updated national biodiversity strategy. So they need to submit national biodiversity strategy and also action plan. When it is to be submitted, it's to be submitted in 2024 when the next conference will be held. After that, these parties, they also need to submit the reports in 2026 national report. That okay, first of all they will be submitting the strategy and plan, and then they'll submit the report in 26-29, and these particular reports will be reviewed, and it will be found out that whether the targets or the plans that they have made, whether they have been achieved or not. The next thing is that perverse incentives that affect biodiversity should be eliminated. Negative incentives, for example, on the coal's exploitation, let's say on the coal there is some incentive that is being given. Okay, now mining projects impact the biodiversity a lot, so perverse negative incentives needs to be removed. Moreover, in all these plannings, whatever will be done as a part of the GBF, indigenous people, local communities, local governments, cities, local authorities, find multilateral environmental agreements, NGOs, women, youth, research organization, all will be included. Now, let's talk about little bit the funding which has been discussed here. So, it has been agreed in COP15 that by 2030, Global Biodiversity Fund will be mobilizing at least $200 billion per year from the domestic sources, international, public, private, for the implementation of national action plan. So we have discussed this national action plan will be issued. So for that, $200 billion will be raised per year. Next thing that comes here is that basically international funding will also be provided to the developing countries. Developing countries will get at least a $20 billion by 2025, and this will be increased to $30 billion by 2030. So this money will be given by developed countries. However, it is to be seen that whether this money will come or not, because in past also for the climate change adaptation and mitigation also, developed countries have agreed that will give the funding, but that has not come. The next is the Global Environment Facility, GEF. Now, GEF is a multilateral body which it is a multilateral body for providing the funding, for example, for many of the biodiversity conservation plans. So, GEF has specifically been provided that it has to establish in 2023 a special task force. Now this task force will be established in 2023 and will continue till 2030, and it will support the implementation of GBF. Okay, so the GBF that we have discussed, for its implementation the task force will be created. So this is all about the key takeaways of COP15 of CBD that has been held. So guys, I hope that you have understood all these particular things. Now moving to next article. How the great gamble on price cap on Russian oil might just fumble. Okay, so this particular article will see with respect to international affairs. International affairs. Fine. Now, basically, what has happened few days back, the G7 countries, group of 7 countries, as well as European Union and Australia, they have basically announced a price cap on Russian oil. Now, understand this particular thing. That right now there is a Russia-Ukraine war is going on. And as this Russia-Ukraine war is going on, basically the West has taken that Ukraine is justified and Russia is aggressor in this particular case. So therefore, many sanctions have been imposed on Russia. Now a new type of step has been taken. What is this particular step? Basically understand this thing, that if oil has to be supplied from Russia to some any other country, let's say ABC country. Now this particular oil will be traveling through the ships, through containers, etc. Ships, containers, etc. Now when we talk about the shipping industry, the global shipping industry is dominated by the Western countries and Western corporates. Now, it has been provided that the Russian oil can be sold at $60 per barrel only. $60 per barrel only. If Russia is selling the oil above $60 per barrel, then the Western ships, Western containers, or basically Western ships, they need not to carry that particular ship. Is it clear or not? So this has been provided that if the Russia is selling the oil at $60 per barrel, more than that, then that particular oil has not to be transported. Now, why this particular thing has been done? So that Russia cannot make excessive profits on the oil that it is selling right now. So it is a sanctions strategy that has been adopted by West. Fine. Now, understand this particular thing. Understand this particular thing, that basically under the plan, Western companies which dominate the global oil shipping, as well as the Western companies which also dominate the insurance business, they will get banned if they offer the service to Russia. Now this price cap, it is an attempt by the West to cut Russia's oil revenue and to reduce the Russian profits. Even now we see this particular thing, that Russia is of supplying the oil to India, and in fact Russia has become the biggest exporter to India in terms of oil. Now basically we find this particular thing, that the economists believe that Russia would continue exporting oil as far at till the time their production cost is less than $60 per barrel. Now understand this particular thing. Basically, the West, it is suffering with a kind of a dilemma. Number one, if Russia completely suspends its oil exports, then what will happen? The basically supply in world market will come really down. And if the supply will come down, and because the demand will be same, what will happen? The prices of the oil will shoot out. So therefore Russian oil is needed. Fine, Russian oil is needed, but we also need to make sure that the Russia doesn't make excessive profit out of that. So therefore this price has been limited at $60 per barrel. Okay, now moving on in this particular direction, basically it has been said that Russia can still continue, because if we see, when the oil fell $20 per barrel into the time of COVID pandemic, still Russia continued the extraction. But we need to understand this particular thing, that at that point of a time Russia has a kind of an understanding that COVID is a temporary blip, and for a temporary period of time the prices have come down. In the future it will increase. When the prices will go up, it will make up for the losses that happened in COVID-19. So this was the reason that during COVID-19 they continued their oil supplies, but now they might not be doing that particular thing. Moreover, it's provided that if the price gap persists over a long period of time, then Russia's incentive to keep their oil supplies open will go down. Understand this particular thing, guys, that into the long run the production decisions, they are not just based on the cost of production. Cost of production is important, but cost of production is not the only factor. Apart from the cost of production, the potential rate of return, for example, you have invested a lot of money, what rate of ROI you are getting on that particular thing, all these things are also important. So therefore investors will look on some other industry rather keeping invested into the petroleum oil extraction if the price gap continues. It has been seen that in 2014 to 2016 there was a 70% drop that happened in the oil prices, and Western Asian oil producers such as Saudi Arabia, they moved on other industries for diversifying their economy. So this also happens. So that is all, guys, about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. 3 more sites added to tentative list of UNESCO. So basically we have UNESCO World Heritage Site list. Okay, now basically before that there is UNESCO tentative list, and UNESCO tentative list is an entry of those particular properties which the state wants to nominate, wants to nominate. So basically in UNESCO World Heritage Site, UNESCO tentative list, sorry, in the UNESCO tentative list, we right now have 52 sites. 52 sites. Why? Because the 3 new sites have been included. Now, the sites in the UNESCO's tentative list are those sites which have rich cultural and natural wealth. So these 3 new sites that got added, they are important for prelims examination this particular year. So let's see that what these 3 sites are. Number one, it's Gujarat's, Vadnagar town. So as per this particular, as per the data that has been provided, Gujarat's Vadnagar town, Vadnagar is a municipality in Mehsana district of Gujarat, and it is a multi-layered historic town. There are certain constructions in this town which dates back to 8th century BC. Then there are other constructions from other time eras. So it is a multi-layered historic towns, and has still it has large number of religious and residential historic buildings that are there. So therefore this site has been nominated to tentative list. Then second is Sun Temple at Modera. Now, when we talk about the Sun Temple at Modera, it is classic representation of Solanki style architecture. It is dedicated to sun god. Okay, and because of the decorative details, etc., that has been provided, it has been added to the tentative list. And third is rock cut sculptures of Unnakoti in Tripura. Now, these rock cut architecture sculptures, they are associated with the Shiva worship. Moreover, there is at this particular site there is a very big gallery, fine, which has which is displaying large number of images, large number of reliefs, and because of the architectural beauty of these reliefs and images, they are quite popular, fine, and they makes it a masterpiece of creative human genius. So because of these particular three things, because of these particular reasons, these 3 sites, that is Vadnagar, Sun Temple, Modera, and Unnakoti in Tripura, they have added to the tentative list of UNESCO. Please keep it in your mind for the prelims examination, important one. Now, moving to next article. A new normal in Indo-Pacific contention. A new normal in Indo-Pacific contention. Okay. So basically, the article is talking about the Indo-Pacific and the confrontations in the Indo-Pacific region. We'll see this particular article with respect to the GS paper number 2, Indo-Pacific strategy. Indo-Pacific strategy. Okay. Now, let's discuss the article. So the article says that there is a new normal of a confrontation that's coming in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, basically in the Indian Ocean, South Asian regions fine are the hurt at the contention. Different countries are having contentions with each other. They are having conflicts with each other. Now, understand this particular thing, that guys, as we talk about the present times, we first find that there is a contention that's there between China and India. Okay, now first of all, when we talk about the India-China confrontations, they are not new. They have been there in the past, but now they have intensified. Why they are getting intensified? One reason could be this, that India is partnering with USA under quadrilateral security dialogue, Quad. And because of that particular thing, the China is getting frustrated, irritated, and it's enhancing its confrontations with India. Now understand this particular thing. China from the long time has tried to mark its influence in this particular region. China has showcased its strategic ambitions and had tried to become dominant. For example, China had become the strategically important power through enroping the countries in its stronghold under Belt and Road Initiative. Fine, strategic. What has happened? China has provided huge loans, have provided financial incentives, mega infrastructure projects in the countries. Okay, and because of that, in all the countries where China had done this, China had got a kind of a dominance. Okay, now at the same time, China is also now these particular investments that China had done as a part of the Belt and Road Initiative, it has given China access to the Indian Ocean. Many Indian Ocean countries, with that, China is promoting the political security ties. Even the military ties are being carried. For example, recently what happened? One of a Chinese surveillance ship docked in the Sri Lanka. Moreover, Sri Lanka's Hambantota port has been taken for 99-year lease by the China. Okay, and this particular port can be used by China for its strategic or military purposes. That can happen. Now, basically, China had the confrontationist approach vis-a-vis India, but that particular thing came to the limelight particularly after the Galwan Valley clash of 2020 that happened. Okay, recently in the Tawang sector also the clashes have happened. Now basically Indian strategic thinking is changing little bit, and it's seeing that China is even a bigger threat than Pakistan. Right now Pakistan is contained in its own problem. For example, Pakistan is right now facing a strategic isolation, economic, political fallout is going on in their Pakistan. Then the terror challenges are coming from Afghanistan in the Pakistan. So Pakistan is contained in all these things, but the China is a big is a big irritant right now for India. This is something that has happened. Now, basically, at the same time, what is happening? India is re-energizing the diplomatic efforts with the neighboring countries. For example, with the Maldives, India has re-energized the diplomatic efforts. Even the Maldives is supporting the India First policy. India has and a lot of economic assistance, grants, infrastructure projects are being provided by India to Maldives. Then, with the Nepal also, India is enhancing the strategic relations. What has happened? First of all, the Nepal is facing again the economic problems in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the India is supporting the Nepal in that particular thing. Okay. Moreover, many of the bilateral agreements, particularly onto the power sector, has been signed between Nepal. Then the next comes the Sri Lanka. Now we know this particular thing that Sri Lanka is facing economic crisis, and India has provided basically assistance of more than $4 billion to Sri Lanka. So by these particular things in the neighborhood, India is trying to cultivate the harmonious relation with the other countries so that these countries can help India against China. Then next thing that comes here is that USA, who is ally of India, is also cultivating the independent relations with the India's neighbors. For example, USA had signed the defense and security framework deal with Maldives, and then secondly, basically the Nepal has also been given Millennium Challenge Corporation $500 million grant by USA. This particular grant was opposed by China, but still USA had given this particular grant. Now by that thing, Nepal will be able to invest that money on building some basic infrastructure, and Nepal and USA will come close together, which indirectly is which indirectly will be impacting India also. Okay, however, US is ally of India, so yes, it is impacting India in a positive manner. Now moving on in this particular direction, basically it has also been provided that when we talk about these particular relations, India cultivating relation and USA cultivating relation with the India and China's neighbor, it is irritating China, and China is further intensifying its adventurism in the region. For example, we see this particular thing that recently a Chinese surveillance vessel, that is Yuan Wong 5, it docked in Sri Lanka. It again re-entered in Indian Ocean. So China is sending its surveillance ships into the Indian Ocean, which is a symbol of a protest by China. After that, China recently also hosted China Indian Ocean Region Forum. And by hosting China India Ocean Region Forum, China is saying that, okay, I am also the credible partner in the Indo-Pacific, and it is making its presence realize in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, understand this particular thing. China will continue to leverage its financial, economic, political influence that it has developed. Okay, but in this particular direction, India needs to be ready for this new confrontationist approach that will be coming, and India should have the diplomatic policy actions that it is going to take in the mind. Now, the next article, upholding the autonomy of election commission. Now this particular article will be important for GS paper number 2, constitutional bodies. Okay, now if you're following newspaper analysis regularly, we have seen few days back multiple number of articles that came in the election commission. Actually, the Supreme Court is hearing the petition for the functional independence of election commission of India. It has been found this particular thing that basically election commission of India is the most important institution in democracy, so therefore it needs to be strengthened. Now when we talk about, guys, the state, there are the three wings of the state. Fine. These three wings are judiciary, legislature, and executive. And after that, there is a constitution. Constitution allocates the powers and functions to all these three wings and ensures that these three wings are working as per the responsibility that has been given to them. Fine. However, guys, in contemporary times, it has come to notice that basically the healthy constitutional democracies need not only these three institutions, but a fourth branch of institution is also needed. What is this fourth branch of institution? We call it as integrity institutions. Now, integrity institutions are those institutions which work independently of judiciary, legislature, and executive and performs many of the important democratic function. Okay, now this particular fourth branch needs to exist, and this fourth branch can guarantee many of the basic rights and constitutional entitlement to citizen. For example, information commission. Now, if there will be the adequately staffed and funded information commission, it will be able to provide much information to the people by which the people can get the justice. Now, understand this particular thing. These tasks involve element of the judicial function, administrative function. Okay, for example, information commission's work is administrative and having some judicial type of functions as well. Now, this particular thing cannot be done by the judiciary. Why? Because judiciary is over already burdened. So we need independent information commission. So these are called as the fourth branch institution. Now these fourth branch institutions, fine, they are the vehicles for implementing the rights against the executives. Fine. Now, secondly, we also have the example that many number of times these fourth fourth wing of the integrity institutions that are there, they are being attacked, they are being controlled by the government also. For example, there is excessive central government control on Central Information Commission in the appointments. Okay, moreover, it has been said that the Central Information Commission has even become a kind of a toothless tiger in the past, it has been said. Now, if we take the example of the countries such as the South Africa, Kenya, in the South African and Kenyan constitution, they have created the dedicated constitutional provision for fourth branch institutions, and they call Human Right Commission, Election Commission, the integrity commissions, and a lot of power has been given so that they can stay independent. Now, within the Indian constitution, the fourth branch institutions that we have can be Election Commission, Controller Auditor General, Public Service Commission, National Commission for Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribe. Okay, now the point is that basically they have been given certain independence by the Constitution of India. Okay, for example, their removal, etc., their removal appointment, fine, their many of the salaries of the constitutional offices, they have basically, or with respect to the salaries and remunerations also, they have been given the assurance. But at the same time, in some of the important institutions, there is the government's direct interference that is there. Particularly when we talk about the election commission, we know this particular thing, that the power of appointment of election commissioners lies exclusively with the executive, that is the president. This is a wrong precedent. If directly the appointment power will be given to the government in the integrity institutions, these institutions then will be working for the government interest only. So here we need to understand that the fourth wing institutions, integrity institutions, they need to stay independent, and for that particular thing, government should not have any interference in this particular thing. So the South African Constitutional Court noted in one of the judgment that the functional independence is effectively possible if the power to appoint is if the power to appoint rests entirely with if the power of just a minute, let's, so South African court has clearly been provided that it will be impossible to maintain the integrity if the power rests with one body or one person. So therefore, basically, particularly in the election commission, where the appointment are just being made by the president, we need to reform that particular thing, and rather than just the president making the appointment, we need to have a collegium kind of a body. Okay, though this collegium body's recommendation is, the word is not mentioned, but in the Supreme Court, the petition that was filed into the Supreme Court, there was this particular thing that came, that rather than appointment by president, collegium should make it. Okay, now moving to the next article, the profound ramifications of one amendment. Now guys, I have provided the PDF of this particular simplified summary of this particular article, but I will not suggest you to go and read too much of this particular article. Why? Because this particular article is talking about the critical analysis of the draft personal data protection bill. Now understand this particular thing, it is right now the draft. So every hairline detail and every hairline fact is not that much important. When it will be placed in parliament and when final version will be coming out, then we need to see. So broad provisions you just see, but every article and every hairline detail which has come there, that's not important. So data privacy, etc., when the conceptual things are coming, they are important. But right now this is a draft bill. It is providing that the deadline for the comments have been extended till January 2, 2023. So basically these details might basically many of the changes will come when the final version will be presented in parliament. Fine, right now it's just under scrutiny. So I have given you the simplified summary. If you want to read, you can. Fine, but no need to go too much in detail. Now moving. No survey done to identify number of EWS, economically weaker section recipients. Okay. Now this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2. So basically guys, what has happened? You know this particular thing that recently Supreme Court in Janhit Abhiyan case has upheld the 10% reservation that was given to the economically weaker section. Now when we talk about the 10% reservation for economically weaker section, in the parliament a question has been asked that have you carried any survey to identify that actually how many people will get this EWS reservation. So union government has provided that it has not conducted any survey, nor it is considering to carry the survey to identify the number of beneficiaries who will get the EWS reservation. Fine. Now as we talk about the 10% EWS reservation, what has happened? In the past, government has given some rough data also. Government has provided to the Supreme Court that on the basis of the data compiled, on the basis of Niti Aayog's multidimensional poverty index, it is estimated that around 18.2% of general category population, around 3.5 crore population will fall under EWS category. So this is some rough idea that we can get the number of people who will get the EWS reservation benefit, but they have not carried any active survey to see this particular thing. Okay, so guys, this is something that has just come on this particular article, nothing more than that. Okay, and no need to go more beyond than what we have discussed here. Moving to the next article. Rule 267, a bone of contention in Rajya Sabha. Now guys, what is this Rule 267? Briefly, we will see this particular thing with respect to the prelims examination. So basically Rule 267 allows for suspension of the day's business to debate on issue suggested by member. Okay, suppose now guys, every day there is an agenda that is taken into the house and that agenda is discussed, but let's say some important matter has come, so that agenda will be dropped and the discussion on other matter will be done. Now the government wants, the opposition party want debate on the Tawang Valley clash that has happened, okay, and many other kind of things, but government is not allowing the Rule 267 and is not suspending the business of the day. Now in this particular direction guys, it has been said that now one of an opposition member had said that there have been 11 instances between 1990 to 2016 when Rule 267 was invoked. In 2016, the Rule 267 was invoked and the discussion on the demonetization happened, but now government is not allowing that particular thing, which is undemocratic according to the opposition members. Okay. Now, Navy takes delivery of submarine Vagir to be commissioned in January. Okay. Now this particular thing we will see with respect to the indigenization of defense. Indigenization of defense, GS paper number 3. Okay, so basically guys, when we talk about the Indian Navy, it's trying to enhance its naval might, and for that particular thing Indian Navy needs more and more submarines, more and more ships. In this particular direction guys, understand what has happened. Basically we started the project 75. Now what is this project 75? Under the project 75, 6 Scorpion class submarines were to be built by the Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilders Limited, and for that particular thing technology transfer will be given by the naval group of France, and for that particular thing a deal was signed in 2005. So technology transfer will be given by France, and under that project 75 will be started, and the ships will be built by Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilders Limited, Mumbai. Now, as the 6 ships were to be built already, the first submarine, that is INS Kalvari, it has been rolled out and it got commissioned in 2017. Then the second INS Khanderi also got inducted in 2019. Then INS Karanj, it got inducted in 2021, and the fourth INS Vela got inducted in 2021. So fourth submarines under the project 75 has already been delivered. Now the fifth Scorpion class conventional submarine is Vagir, which is mentioned in this particular article. Okay, so basically the Vagir is delivered to the Navy. Now the ship is scheduled to be commissioned in January 2023, and the sixth submarine, its name is Vakshir. Now Vakshir is right now going the sea trials, and it will be delivered by 2023 end. And by this particular thing, all the 6 submarines under the project 75 will be delivered to the Indian Navy. Clear? Now when we talk about the Navy, it currently has a 15 conventional and 1 nuclear submarine. Okay, and these 15 conventional submarines include the Russian Kilo class submarines, German HDW submarines, 4 Scorpion class submarines that we have already seen got inducted. Fifth one is going to be inducted in 2023 January, and sixth one also in 2023. And we also have indigenous nuclear ballistic missile submarine INS Arihant. Okay, so this is guys all about it. Now moving to next slide, that is the mains practice question. So today's mains practice question, it says Election Commission of India has generally enjoyed a high reputation of holding free and fair polls since the dawn of Republic 1950. Discuss the recent issues related to Election Commission. Okay, so this will be a 10 marker question for GS paper number 2. So that is all guys for the today's newspaper analysis. And with this we come to an end. If you have liked the video, then you may hit like the button if you have liked it. Also please leave the comments if you are liking